Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to this yet another clinical episode on our XP Connect webinar education series powered by Vinugo. Myself, Sharat Shirvastava, segment leader from Point of Care Ultrasound of GE Healthcare, will gives you a warm welcome for this webinar.
Hello.
So, let me introduce you. So, actually, Dr. Grover has to come today, but
I
because of
can't
some
hear.
medical reasons he could not make it. So we are going to introduce Dr. Virendra Kumar Shoren, who is from the same team and from the division of peripheral vascular endovascular series, Medanta, Medicity. He will be doing the webinar in place of Dr. Grover. So he is actually the course director and founder member of Vascular Access Society and also a principal investigator for ongoing phases in 4C study in Medanta. He is on the National Board Guide and Examiner for Postgraduate Studies for DNP course, and he is a reviewer for Index Journals, IGRI and JCIR. So he is also the member of National Advisory Board for Oral Anticoagulants. So let me again introduce and welcome Senior Consultant Intervention Radiologist from Dr. Virender and ask him to start this webinar. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sharad. Thank you so much. And once again, thank to GE for such a great platform where we all can share our experiences. And today's topic, role of point of care ultrasound with venous Doppler for lower limbs. So I will be sharing basically the need of ultrasound for venous diseases pertaining to the lower limbs, and I'll be focusing more on the clinical point of what should be looked for and how an ultrasound, which is basically nothing but modern day stethoscope, which aids not only in diagnosis, intervention during the procedure, but also in post-op care. So coming to the basic controls, we know that ultrasound for today's era is stethoscope. So we should know our machine, and the more you know about your machine, it will be your best friend. So with the modern machines, be it from any vendor, they are so great that everything is labeled, everything is preset. So there is a button, you can put name of the patient, there is preset for basically what you are looking for, vein, upper limb vein, lower limb vein. You can select your probe accordingly. If you need more depth, then you decrease your basically megahertz. When you need less depth, more clarity, more superficial, you go with a linear probe and with higher frequencies. Direction of the probe, whether you're looking for basically a cross-sectional view or a longitudinal view, then you have basically you can reverse. These are just the basic, the B mode, the color mode, and the basically a power. So you need to know your basics before going for a study on ultrasound or a duplex. So basic controls one should be known about the PRF, which is nothing but a pulse repetition frequency, gain, depth adjustment, the scan area, the angle, which we all know that the angle should be while doing a Doppler, the intonation should be perfect, because if you are not at the right angle, the value which you'll get will be false. Then you need to know your velocities, the peak systolic velocities, the end diastolic velocities. You should know how to adjust your baseline and the frequency. So these are very, very important. So I won't be going into depth of all this because it's pertaining to the venous diseases and more of a practical talk. So the main indications for using an ultrasound or a Doppler or a duplex is for a venous disease, the most common indication would be patient coming to you with a swelling in the lower limb. The swelling can be acute, the swelling can be chronic or acute on chronic. So patient can come with pain. Pain can be in the entire leg, pertaining to calf or any other particular area of the leg. Patients can come to you with varicose veins, basically dilated veins. Could be just veins with pigmentation, could be ulceration. So this is one of the indication for Doppler or the color Doppler for a venous cause. Then another indication is deep vein thrombosis, acute onset swelling and pain with redness, not resolving, and then the patient will do all kind of maneuvers. So DVT. Then you have basically venous insufficiency, and now there is a big field for patients who are on hemodialysis. Those guys or basically gentlemen or female needing venous mapping for making a access which is called as AV fistula or a graft. So the ultrasound or the duplex plays very important role. So let's go step by step. Varicose veins, one should know when they go for a duplex. So varicose veins are veins that become long, tortuous, dilated, and the main cause is non-functional valves. So whenever such patients come to you, we all know, and we all into the medical fraternity know that you cannot diagnose a disease unless you know the normal things. So the anatomy has to be there before you begin to look or search for the pathology. So we know that there is a saphenofemoral junction, there is a saphenopopliteal junction, how the great saphenous vein goes, and basically there is a confluence of the superficial and the deep vein. You should know about the perforators and the location of the perforators, and that's how you can do a good duplex scan. So again, this slide shows you what is the information desired from an sonologist when they are looking for varicose veins. So basically, deep vein status, superficial vein status, rule out any deep vein thrombosis. The junctional status, basically how the valves are working, how is the saphenofemoral or saphenopopliteal junction, calf veins, perforators, compressibility, basically how the veins are basically easily compressible or not, whether there is a thrombus within. This is very important. So here it's a nice diagram which is showing this deep vein, which is like a superficial femoral vein, the profunda vein, common femoral vein, and in the basically there is the saphenofemoral junction. And then you need to know the other anterior thigh vein, circumflex, pudendal. These all confluence at the junctional region. Similarly, one should know about the saphenopopliteal region. So there is a variant which is called as vein of Giacomerini. This is very important. Sometimes the reflux is not from the saphenopopliteal junction, but the reflux is from the vein of Giacomerini, which goes up, and then they can basically have a confluence with the basically SFV, which is superficial femoral vein. This is just a diagram which is this is a picture which shows you how the vein is dilated, and this is a typical example of vein of Giacomerini. Here you can see it. So SPJ, SSV, and this is the basically vein of Giacomerini. So you should be aware of the anatomy, and then the things become easy. So the first thing, know your machine, know your anatomy, then half the battle is won. So information desired, physiological. So once you are looking for the veins, you need to have a flow pattern. We all know how the veins are connected to basically the entire flow from the lower limb goes into right atrium. So there is a phasic pattern. Whenever there is an obstruction or a cutoff in between, the phasicity is lost. You look for reflux. By reflux, I mean ask the patient to strain or do a Valsalva or lift his neck. So by straining, you look for the direction of the flow in your veins. If the valves are competent, there won't be a deep venous reflux towards the feet. Similarly for the junctional reflux. So when we say competent valves, that means there is no reflux when the patient is doing Valsalva or straining basically through the SFJ or SPJ or even with the perforators. Now look, and as I have already told, look for deep venous status, whether there is old thrombus, whether there is a new thrombosis, whether there is recanalized flow, you can see the stranding, or whether the walls are thick, so rule out superficial thrombophlebitis. Simultaneously, always look for an arterial system, because most of the patients who come in their old age do have diabetes, which is our country's hub for that. So look for arterial system, and that could be a great favor to our patient. This is basically the slide showing the characteristics of the vein on ultrasound. The normal veins are, we all know, thin walls, easily compressible even with the pressure of the probe. So that's why when we do our Doppler, we hold our probe like a pen. We cannot compress it really hard, then you will not be able to see your vein, and you'll keep on searching. So hold like a pen. Do it. It's an art basically. When the veins get thickened, then you can easily make out that there is some prior history of thrombophlebitis, or maybe a thrombosis which has got recanalized. So this is very important. Compressibility is very important. So here is just an example of how the vein can be easily compressed with light pressure of the probe. That's the difference between the artery and the vein. This is basically a video loop which shows you the characteristics of the vein. The operator is doing a scan in the longitudinal scan basically, and he's compressing the vein and relieving the pressure. Here you can scan the entire vein and look for any pathology within the lumen. So do in both the planes, I would say. Here you can see nice phasic flow on the video. So this is important. So normal phasic flow, venous Doppler patterns, spontaneous phasic flow augments with distal compression, no significant reflux with proximal compression, and it is basically non-pulsatile. So this is a characteristics of venous flow pattern which one should be aware of. Again, an example of compression with the ultrasound probe. So that's how you can locate the vein and its characteristic. Even with color Doppler, you can see the entire lumen is filling, and when you compress and then you release it. So coming to compression USG, so there is complete coarctation of the venous walls. If you have a resistance, think something and talk to your patient, look for any prior history, look for history of cannulation, prior hospital administration. So abnormal would be a partial or a non-compressible vein. Some veins are normally difficult to compress, and this is basically a distal femoropopliteal region, because they are too deep because of the anatomy or the course how it goes. So proximal profunda femoris lies at a tangent to the probe. Posterior tibial at the ankle is again adjacent to the medial malleus. So there are places where you won't be able to compress it completely, but then you should be aware and should not label it falsely as a deep vein thrombosis. So verify compressibility. If vein is non-compressible but no thrombus is visualized, consider number one, obstruction to the flow, or there could be an extrinsic compression. So factors that affect vein diameter are definitely patient position. If he is standing or she is standing with lot of pressure, the diameter goes up. The temperature of your basically room, the jelly which you are using, so everything plays a role. Proximal vein compression will distend your vein, and the Valsalva maneuver. These are all important things to be, or factors to be noted before labeling a pathology. Here you can see left SFV, and this is non-compressible. So look for a scan. What we are looking here. So when we are screening towards the basically a vein, you can see there is a distended vein. It's a longitudinal scan, you can see, and there is flow in the superficial vein, but not in the, let me do it again. Okay, let's do it. So the deep vein is studded. with the echogenic material, which is basically mixed hyper and hypoechoic. And then you see the artery, which is beside, and the superficial vein, which is flowing, and then there is no flow into the deep venous system. So it's basically flowing through the other collateral. So this is a case of deep vein thrombosis, most likely subacute. It's not a jet black thing, but there are criteria to call it acute, subacute, or chronic, but they are not 100% sensitivity or specific. You need to ask patients about the history, but with the Doppler you are pretty close also. So assessment of thrombosis. What is a job of a good sonologist? Look for the extent. Start from the toe, but definitely go up and look into the iliacs and the IVC. It is very important for the treatment purpose and how the patient will land up with chronic venous insufficiency in future. Degree of attachment, by saying that sometimes as you go more cranial, the thrombus is basically attached to one of the walls of the vein, and that is what we call as hanging or free floating thrombus, which can be devastating sometimes, and an indication for IVC filter. If a big chunk can go up, it can cause a pulmonary embolism if the patient is not receiving proper therapeutic anticoagulation. Look for the echogenicity of the thrombus, which I have already shown you. If the more the chronic the thrombus is, the more echogenic or bright or white it looks. So that will give a fair idea, and this has to be mentioned in your basically description of your report, because this is very helpful to the treating endovascular specialist or an expert who is planning to do a thrombolysis or pharmacomechanical thromboaspiration, because the age of the clot is important, and your tiny comment can definitely help him or her. So the texture, then the plan the access for the thrombolysis. So those guys who do this percutaneous intervention, they do Doppler by themselves, and at the same time they can plan whether how is the popliteal vein, how is the posterior tibial or anterior tibial vein, where they need to access it, where they need to place the sheet. So that is also very important. Or you can just mention the popliteal vein is distended and it's so deep from the skin. So that will be again a very helpful mention. So here you can see acute thrombus in the right superficial femoral vein, distal thigh region. It's a jet black distended vein. So this is basically a typical feature patient coming within a day or within 2-3 days. So for within 14 days by convention it's called as basically acute. Spongy texture when you compress. Sometimes when it is very acute, patient comes within hours or same day, you may miss it very easily because it is so soft when and it's compressible. So when you compress the vein, you will feel that you are missing something. It has smooth borders, the vein is distended, it is dilated. So acute thrombus will be hypoechoic, and basically it's a hyperacute, I would say, and difficult to see on B mode without increasing your gain settings. And I have seen many reports which are easily missed when the thrombus is or the DVT is hyperacute. Now, as the time passes by, the thrombus or the blood clot becomes hyperechoic, so it's brightly echogenic. What does that mean? It looks a little bit whitish. So it's well attached to the wall, well organized. Sometimes it is difficult to differentiate the wall and the thrombus. So that means it's well attached to the vein. There is a lot of fibrosis going on. There's a rigid structure or texture. You cannot compress the vein nicely. And as the time passes by, the vein gets contracted, fibrosed, and becomes irregular. You can sometimes see collaterals around, you can see recanalized flow or the stranding. This is how it is on the longitudinal scan. So here you can see this is deep vein thrombosis, and it shows basically hyperechoic or a bright echogenic material within it. And as I told you, you can see that same thing on the cross-sectional view. Again, very important thing, as the time passes, the patient is taking anticoagulation, body's natural mechanism is acting, again, basically recanalization starts. So at this time, when you look for the veins, you will see partial flow within the vein with septations within. And if the patient doesn't give you a history, please do talk to them whether they had a swelling in past, any intervention, any insertion of any line. Then you'll realize that patient will give a history pertaining to prior deep venous thrombosis. So this is very important. Don't miss it, because if a patient comes to you for a duplex of a venous system, for varicose vein, for example, and if you miss a deep vein thrombosis, the patient can land up in a trouble. So deep venous visualization is very important. Here you can see, as there is thrombosis of the vein, you can see a multiple collateralization, basically tiny channels, because blood has to somehow flow centrally. The flow courses parallel to the thrombosed segments. Again, a very good example. This is called as neovascularization of thrombus. Neovascularization of thrombus via the perivenous vessels. These vessels are generally too small to see with ultrasound, but with a good machine, you can nicely visualize by basically doing an optimal setting. So as I told initially, that you should know your machine, and then it will be your great friend. Transverse view showing one of this, basically collateral or the feeding vessels. Now coming to the position, you cannot just go ahead and do the Doppler in any position. The patient has to be comfortable. The anatomy, you should looking for the pathology, the anatomy should be well delineated. So a patient is lying on back, the leg, either leg, right or left, has to be rested. The frog leg position is a great position. The patient is relaxed. The anatomy of the vein is well delineated in this position. So apply your jelly, keep it a little warm, and this is how the anatomy. So right from the common femoral vein, which is the groin area, you can start searching or scanning and look for superficial deep venous system till the ankle. And when you go for any venous Doppler, don't forget to look for iliac veins up to the iliocaval junction. So this is a great position for basic deep venous anatomy of the leg. Now let's see. Starting at the common femoral vein scan. So here you are looking with the transverse view. So your probe is kept as it is marked here. So this blue thing is your probe. Basically, we are talking about a linear probe with a higher frequency, so that we are not looking into a deeper structure, and everything is visualized accordingly. So the vein, artery, then you compress it, look for all the characteristics which we have discussed: the compressibility, the vein wall, the lumen, the echogenicity, the flow, phasicity. So everything has to be looked step by step. This is the position where you look for SFV. Again, just a prototype. You have to scan in length. Don't miss any segment when you are scanning. Look in both the planes, transverse and longitudinal. So in the patient is not moving. Patient is very comfortable lying. And in the same position, you can look for common femoral, the entire superficial femoral vein, and then in the same position, you go for a popliteal visualization. So the position is very important. So one more important thing: be cautious not to mistake the often prominent muscular veins, which is gastrocnemius veins, for the popliteal veins. Yes, especially in the athletes or runners, the muscular veins are so prominent that you may miss it for a popliteal vein. So again, that is an important point. Now, as you come down, you should know of in which view you are going to look for basically the anterior tibial veins, the posterior tibial veins, which basically are running in parallelly. So there are always two anterior tibial veins, two posterior tibial veins and peroneal veins which run with the artery, parallel with the artery. The anterior veins are so rarely subject to thrombosis that they are not examined as a matter of routine, but it's not always the rule of thumb. So I would say look for the entire anterior tibial, posterior tibial and peroneal veins. This is how it looks for. So the artery and along with the artery you can see two veins going in line. So go for same compression, longitudinal transverse views. Here you can nicely demonstrate how the echogenic, the accrual or the basically veins are there below the knee. You can look for same findings as we have discussed before. So coming to perforating veins. In the normal circumstance, the superficial system drains the subcutaneous tissue and periodically empties into the deep system via perforating veins. So flow direction should always be basically cephalad, superficial to deep, and it is well demonstrated on this slide. Normal venous flow and valve movement. So now what happens is basically when there is an incompetent valve, the things become bidirectional or the direction changes. So here you can look for now some live videos. Here you can see how the reflux is there. So when the patient is straining or doing an Valsalva, this is what happens. You can see. So there is the flow below the baseline when this is how it should be, and then it refluxes when the patient strains. Here you can see the reflux. So a strain, and then there is a basically incompetent valve. So there is a great reflux. Again an example of reflux. So we just with the minimal strain or lifting of the neck, this is what happens when the valve is incompetent. So there are criteria for that, and you should be aware of whenever there is a reflux, when to diagnose a valve to be an incompetent. So it is basically 0.005 seconds. So that's mentioned in the book. But you have to look for many criteria apart from that. Deep vein incompetence, whether the patient is training properly or not, everything has to be looked for. Because sometimes patients don't strain it, and then what you look for is the false negative report comes. The patient has clinically varicose veins, but he's not or she's not straining properly, and you cannot demonstrate it. So always try to check whether the patient is doing a good Valsalva maneuver, whether he's standing or she's standing, and that's how it is. So then you can scan the entire superficial vein and look for the reflux. That is again very important. So here what I want to highlight is the external iliac vein, and often the CFV do not have valves, so need not to be checked for incompetency. But below that you have to check for basically reflux. Here you can see post-thrombotic syndrome. So by syndrome there is basically combination of lot of signs based. So chronic venous insufficiency patients are those patients usually who has developed thrombosis or DVT way back in their life, and then not got properly treated, or even if they have got treated, they have left medications and there is thrombosis, no complete recanalization. And these are the patients who will be referred to you as a basically need to do something for those patients in which the ulcers are not healing. So this is again one subset of patients who will be sent for Doppler, and then you will be looking for deep venous reflux, you'll be looking for junctional reflux, recanalization, extent of the thrombosis. So post-thrombotic syndrome in patients with a past history of DVT, as I have already told you, can lead to deep venous incompetence or current DVT. So this is very important to exclude a cause for the basically patients who are presenting with ulcer or secondary varicosities. So this is just a digital subtraction image which I wanted to highlight. This is how it looks. There is a cicatrized vein, multiple collaterals. So this can be easily picked up in a patient with an average body habitus, with a good ultrasound machine and a good technique. So this is how the reflex will look, and you can see the superficial vein thrombosis. So this is again an example of short saphenous vein thrombosis. This is a view in the frog-leg position when we are looking for a popliteal vein. At the same time, you can look for a short saphenous vein, and this is thrombosed along the length till it basically goes and have a confluence with the popliteal vein. Another example, the patient comes with a ulcer which is not healing, and here you can see there are prominent veins clinically, ulcer over the sheen, and once you start doing a Doppler, here you can see there is a dilated vein, and they perforated, nicely demonstrated a big perforator. And the second image is showing sclerotherapy was done. So a focal sclerotherapy was done for this patient under ultrasound guidance. As I had already told you, the role of ultrasound doesn't end just with diagnosis. It is very important during the intervention, and it is a standard of care. So you have to do all these procedures under visualization so that the complications are minimal. So here again, this is a video which shows localization of the perforator. If you look at this video here, you can see the perforator traversing the fascia. So from the superficial to the deep venous system, nicely seen once you angle your probe accordingly. So let's talk about perforators. This is something which will keep on annoying the patient, the clinician, or the treating physician, as well as the one who is diagnosing it. Because even after a patient undergoes a good endovenous thermal or non-thermal ablation for the truncal vein, or maybe an conventional surgery, and the patient comes with a recurrence of the ulcer, the culprit is not the truncal vein but the perforators. Until these perforators are tackled properly, the patient will never get benefit of the treatment. So here you can see superficial deep fascia, and this is the green one is the basically perforator which is incompetent. The blue ones are the superficial system. So this is important to localize a perforator. You can mark it, or if you are a treating physician, then definitely the ultrasound is something which will guide you during the procedure. So a perforating vein joins the superficial veins to the deep veins. By definition, a perforating vein must breach the fascia between the superficial fat and the muscle fascia. So one should be aware of few of the commonly mentioned perforators. So below the knee we have voids, pockets, and then you have dots and Hunterian. These are common sites one should be looking for. There are occasions when we have seen the junction is well competent. If you look for saphenofemoral junction, it is well competent. Saphenopopliteal junction well competent, but there is a reflux. So look for or follow your superficial vein and then look for the incompetent perforator, then you will be able to demonstrate it nicely on a duplex. Here you can see incompetent perforator vein lateral to sheen of LSV. So this is again an incompetent perforator which is nicely demonstrated by ultrasound piercing the fascia. Here is again same thing, just to explain the color view. So this is the deep part, this is the subcutaneous fat, this is the fascia, and this is the perforating vein. This is something which is very important. You can measure the direction and the direction of the flow. Ask the patient to basically stand, and then you can easily examine. Here you can see Another spectrum when the patient comes to you is basically vascular malformations. So vascular malformation per se is a basically very big uh, uh, disease, I would say, or a spectrum, I would say, where you have arteriovenous malformation, which can be high flow, low flow. Then you have simple venous malformations, or you have venolymphatic malformations. So there are many combinations which come under this spectrum. So such patients, when they come for duplex, again, you should be knowing whether this was congenital, post-traumatic, ask history, and then keep on doing the basic principle doesn't change. So you look for deep pain, you look for superficial system, you look for any communication with the artery, whether there is a AVM or an AV fistula. So here you can see that you can easily localize the phlebolytics. So there is a slow flow venous malformation and then you can compare. So this patient had an MRI, and here you can see the slow flow venous malformation, basically in the intramuscular region, affecting the entire leg and the gluteal region for the patient. Nicely, you can see on this scan there is a phlebolith. So what happens is basically because of the slow flow within this dilated venous channels, calcification occurs, and then you can see phleboliths. This is a case where you can see patient had a AVM with both arterial venous component, underwent a treatment with multimodality involvement. I would say there was a percutaneous embolization, intraarterial embolization, venous embolization. So you can see the coils inside the venous sac with some residual filling of the nidus. So again, this is a spectrum where we should be aware of. This is just an example to show how the disease was tackled with the percutaneous access into the venous sac, and ultrasound is again very handy along with the angio as a therapeutic tool while doing the procedure. Another good example of a venous Doppler. This is basically transvaginal. So you have a spatial probe, we all know, which can be used for doing ultrasound and Doppler through the transvaginal route. So patient had a pelvic congestion syndrome, which means there is a pain in the lower pelvis, which is basically a chronic pelvic pain for duration of more than 6 months and association with straining. So a Doppler was done, and you can nicely demonstrate here on Valsalva the reflux, the dilated parauterine veins, and this is one of the modality which is now gold standard to rule out whether patient has a pelvic congestion syndrome or not. Here is an example, DSA, how a pelvic congestion syndrome or a dilated pelvic vein looks, and it can cause vulval varicosities, and how it is embolized using this is how it is. So, but ultrasound is a method which takes not more than 10 minutes, totally almost non-invasive, and you can give lot of information with this scan. So structures that may be mistaken for veins. So just when we are doing a venous Doppler, we should be aware that there are things which we can basically confuse with the vein. Sometimes there are nodes which are very hypoechoic, can be elongated, and we should not miss for the vein and call it a DVT. Baker cyst, which is very common in the basically calf region, which can mimic vein, or if there is a rupture Baker cyst, there is some material within, it can be easily mistaken as a DVT. With clinical examination, because there is a swelling, tenderness, and it is the sonologist or the guy who is doing a doctor's job to differentiate it between the DVT and the Baker cyst, because the management changes drastically. In a ruptured Baker cyst, one would avoid giving an anticoagulation, which is must while treating a DVT. There could be hematoma, there could be abscess, sometimes neuromas. So these are certain things which can be mistaken in your early phase when you are starting a Doppler. So whenever you are giving, if you are not a treating physician, you are a sonologist, and somebody has referred a patient to you, so please try to give a basic hard copy imaging. Study should include the following minimum images. I would say I usually start with iliacs and IVC, but at least this much is expected: a CFP bifurcation and SFP proximal distal demonstrating patency and competency, popliteal vein demonstrating patency and competency is SFJ, which is a saphenofemoral junction, SPJ if present demonstrating patency and competency. So, I mean, you have to look for junctions, you have to look for perforators, the depth, the diameter of the perforator, the position related to the surface landmark, and then always try to note any significant or a typical junction of varices to the normal system, whether there is a duplication. We have seen there is duplication of superficial or a long super LSV or a GSV, and if one vein is ablated and the other one is left, then there could be a recurrence. Any incidental pathology, as we have discussed in the previous slide, should be mentioned. So in this way, your image could be or your report could be near complete, I would say. So factors affecting diagnostic accuracy. I would start with the machine. Have a good machine. Know your machine. Your experience, definitely it is true for each of us and from any field we come for. So experience of the examiner. The more experience you are, the more disease you see, the better you are. So experience of the interpreting physician, choice of the transducer frequency. You cannot use a curvilinear probe and look for a superficial vein. So it is important. The frequency is important. The size of the patient and the body habitus again plays a very important role. So that is again the role comes very important. Warming the room, taking a warm jelly, making the patient comfortable. These are all very important things. Never shy to take out the dressings. Try to scan the entire vein. Look for not only the pathology but proximal and distal to the pathology. So that these are few things which are very important and can affect your diagnostic accuracy. So I would like to summarize my talk by saying venous duplex scanning is extremely sensitive and cost effective in the hands of an experienced operator. For identification of deep vein thrombosis, the sensitivity and specificity are very high in an experienced hand. It is used to assess valve function, monitor thrombolytic therapy, long-term follow-up of veno-occlusive disease, and as I had already told you, it is not even not only a diagnostic tool. Basically, it is something which is mandatory during the procedure, during the intervention, and for follow-up. So I would like to conclude my talk by saying that in today's era, we are incomplete if we don't know our Doppler, if we don't know how to interpret the Doppler or a duplex or an ultrasound. So it is very, very important. It's a modern day stethoscope, and that's it. If you have any questions, I'm open to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, doctor. So,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, we have got a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, what kind of probe and frequency you should choose to access the lower and upper veins and artery?
Yeah. So you see, as I told you, we need to choose the linear probe when we are going to look for arteries or veins in our lower limb. And the reason is, go for a good megahertz probe, linear probe. If you're looking for a small vessel like ATV, PTV behind the malleolus, then you can even go for a hockey stick probe. And as you go up above the groin, if the patient is thin, this linear probe is definitely of help. But go for a curvilinear probe as you go into the iliacs and aorta. So what happens is, with the decrease in frequency, the depth increases and the field of area also increases. So more superficial the thing, you need the linear probe, and more frequency or the megahertz should be better.
Thank you, sir. So another question is ki what any particular special settings to be done on the Novology front?
Yeah, so spatial settings, like I would say, you should know the focus, the depth. Basically, when you're putting a color flow, the scale should be in the area where, or in the segment where you are basically looking for the artery or the vein. The angle should be 45 degree, less than 60 degree, I would say, basically. So these are few things which are very important. The basically PRF. If the PRF is too high or too low, then you'll get again false information. The color button, the TGC. So there are a few things. So before starting your machine, it's almost like flying a aeroplane. I would say before starting, look on the screen. Somebody might have disturbed the settings. Although we do have presets available, the life is very simple nowadays. But still have a look and do all your settings and then proceed accordingly.
Thank you so much, sir. So RF ablator and ultrasound, how do they are correlated with each other?
You mean to say the RF frequency which we use?
Yes, yes. So do we do
Yeah.
some procedures under guidance of ultrasound
Yeah,
with
yeah.
RF?
So before before giving this talk, I just did one, and the thing is, once the radio frequency is too high, and it's powerful, the visualization on the screen goes down. So this is something to be noted. When we do an endovenous procedure with laser or any other thermal way, uh, it's fine. But I have seen with the mic, even with the microwave and the radio frequency, as soon as the frequency for the starts, it goes the inverse way. So would you suggest something?
So as far as the high-end systems are concerned, so I think it will prove to be a differentiator if you try with that.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. So that's the beauty of the newer ones. Yeah.
Yes. So another question has just popped in. So how do you incompetency of perforator by Valsava or compression? Do we
Yeah.
see for the 6 sides of perforators only?
No. So I would say you have to scan the entire vein. These are just something which has to be kept in mind, but you can look for many. So the entire tract of the superficial vein, its communication with the deep vein, any other system has to be managed. Valsalva patient, as I told you, explain in their own native language. Sometimes they may not understand how to strain. You can ask them to stand. You can ask them to blow their abdomen out. You can ask them to strain as they go for toilet. So these are certain criteria which are helpful. Just see how they are doing it, and you are not supposed to look for only 5 or 7 or 8 perforators. I usually start my scan with the LSV from the ankle, scan the entire vein in lying position, standing position, look for perforators, ask the patient to strain. So this is very important. Take your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So this was all from the
Yeah.
audience. So it was highly informative, sir. And again, thank you so much for giving your time and spending for this
Thank you
webinar.
so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and we'll keep on doing that in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.